First story. I rejected my boyfriend of 5 years' proposal because he disrespected me with his cheap ring. But my friends and everyone took his side and cut me off, saying I publicly humiliated my boyfriend and didn't deserve him. Okay, so, yeah, I'm using a throwaway because I really don't want my friends or family seeing this. Things have been really bad lately, and honestly, I don't know if I'm the arsehole here, or if everyone else is just being dramatic. I need Reddit to tell me if I ruined my relationship over nothing, or if my expectations were actually reasonable. To start, I 28F have been with my boyfriend 30M for 5 years. We've had a great relationship for the most part. He's sweet, caring, and really supportive. He's never given me a reason to doubt how much he loves me, and I know he'd always have my back if I ever needed anything. But here's the thing, I've always expected more. I'm not saying he's bad, but sometimes I feel like I've had to remind him that I deserve to be treated like the catch that I am. I mean, I'm attractive, successful, self-employed, not rich but comfortable, and honestly, I could probably do better if I wanted to. But I've stuck it out with him because, well, I loved him and thought we were on the same page about where our future was going. For context, my boyfriend has a good job and a decent amount of money saved up. He's not flashy, but he's comfortable. He spends on things that matter to him, like treating his sister 26F to nice things or paying for her vacations because they're really close. I never really made an issue out of it, but I always felt like if he could spend on her, then when the time came to propose to me, I should get something just as special if not more. Anyway, here's what happened. A couple of weeks ago, my boyfriend surprised me by taking me to this gorgeous upscale restaurant. Think candlelit tables, soft piano music, servers dressed in suits, the whole 9 yards. I had a feeling this was it. I mean, we'd talked about marriage so many times, and I'd even shown him the kind of rings I liked. To be clear, I wasn't expecting a $20,000 ring or anything, but something classy and elegant. Something that shows he understands my taste and values me, you know. So there we were, eating this amazing dinner, and I noticed he was acting a little nervous. I honestly felt like I was living in one of those fairy tale moments people post on Instagram. Toward the end of the meal, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out this tiny box, and smiled at me. My heart was pounding. Everyone in the restaurant was glancing over, probably because they could tell what was about to happen. And then it happened. He got down on one knee and opened the box. And that's when I saw it. The ring was underwhelming, to say the least. It wasn't ugly or anything, but it was small, like really small. A plain band with a tiny diamond that looked like something you'd grab at a discount jewelry store. I just froze. My first thought was, is this a joke? I mean, I'd seen what he spends on his sister and on fancy dinners for us, so I know he can afford better. It felt like a slap in the face. I could feel my cheeks burning, and suddenly, all that fairy tale magic just evaporated. He started saying all these sweet things, how much he loved me, how he wanted to spend his life with me, how I was his soulmate. But all I could focus on was that ring, and how it felt like he didn't care enough to put in the effort to get me something that matched my worth. If I'm going to wear this thing for the rest of my life, shouldn't it be something I'm proud of? So, I said no. I didn't cause a scene or anything, but I told him I couldn't accept the proposal. I tried to explain that I was hurt because the ring felt like an afterthought, and I expected more from someone who claims to love me. He looked devastated. Like, his face just crumbled, and he barely said anything. He just got up, paid the bill, and left. We haven't spoken much since that night. A few days later, he texted me saying he needed space, and now it feels like we're pretty much done. But here's where things get worse. My friends, who I thought would have my back, are all calling me out. They're saying I'm shallow and materialistic, and that I should have appreciated the gesture instead of focusing on the ring. Even the friends who hyped me up before, telling me I deserve the best, are now saying I messed up big time. What hurts the most is that his sister, who's always been super sweet to me, hasn't said a word. I honestly thought she'd at least try to mediate or say something supportive, but she's been completely silent. It's like everyone is against me, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. I keep replaying the moment in my head, wondering if I overreacted or if my expectations were fair. I mean, I've given so much to this relationship, and I don't think it's wrong to want a proposal that reflects how much he values me. If he really loved me, wouldn't he have gone all out to make sure it was perfect? So, Reddit, did I ruin my relationship over nothing, or was I right to expect more? I can't tell if I'm crazy for feeling this way, or if everyone else is just being unfair to me. Comments. Comment 1. This post is actually disgusting. You're out here whining about a man who worked his arse off to give you a romantic proposal because the ring wasn't big enough. Are you kidding me? You literally humiliated him, crushed him, and destroyed your relationship over something so effing superficial. And the worst part? You still think you're the victim. He probably worked hard to pick something meaningful, and instead of appreciating it, you shat all over his effort. If I were him, I'd run as far away from you as possible. You don't love him, you love the idea of being spoiled and worshipped. And the fact that you're salty about his sister being a decent person and not taking your side just shows how FD up your priorities are. Here's the hard truth. You don't deserve him, and honestly, you never did. Comment 2. OP, let me break it down for you since you clearly don't get it. 1. You're not mad about the ring. You're mad because your boyfriend didn't indulge your inflated sense of self-worth. You don't see love, you see dollar signs. 2. Your boyfriend has a great relationship with his sister, and instead of respecting that, you're jealous of her. What the actual F? She's not your competition. 3. You're not some queen who deserves the world just because you exist. This man has spent 5 years loving you, and you threw it back in his face because you didn't get a shiny enough rock. I feel bad for him, he deserves better than your shallow, self-absorbed arse. If you want a relationship based on gifts and money, maybe just hire a sugar daddy and leave decent people alone. Update. First of all, I didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did. Some of you were absolutely brutal, like, wow, thanks for the insult, I guess. But I took some of your comments to heart and decided to meet with my boyfriend to talk things out. I thought maybe we could find some middle ground and fix things, but it became clear pretty quickly that it wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, this is an update, and I'm officially done with this relationship. Here's what happened. After days of him ignoring me, he finally agreed to meet me for coffee. He looked awful, like completely drained. I tried to approach things gently, but he was cold from the start. He told me straight up that he needed space, but wanted to see me one last time to get everything off his chest. And, wow, did he have a lot to say? He told me he felt completely humiliated by how I handled the proposal. He said proposing to me was one of the scariest, most vulnerable things he's ever done, and my reaction destroyed him. He said the way I focused on the ring instead of the moment made him feel like all his love and effort over the years meant nothing. I won't lie, hearing him say that stung a little, but at the same time, I couldn't stop thinking, but the ring does matter. It's not just some tiny detail. It's the one thing I'd wear every single day of my life as a symbol of our relationship, and I wanted it to reflect how much I'm worth to him. I tried explaining this to him again, but he just shook his head and said he couldn't believe I was still focusing on the ring after everything. After that, he just said he needed space and left it at that. He didn't want to argue anymore and made it clear he didn't want to keep rehashing the same fight. It felt like he'd already made up his mind about us, which, honestly, pissed me off even more. I was still trying to work things out, and he was just shutting me down. I thought that was the end of it. But then a few days later, his sister reached out to me. She sent me a long message, saying she wanted to explain the story behind the ring, because she thought I deserved to know the full picture. Apparently, the ring belonged to their aunt, who passed away from cancer when my boyfriend was in his early 20s. She had been a huge part of his life growing up, and before she died, she gave him her engagement ring, telling him to keep it until he met the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. According to his sister, the ring had a lot of sentimental value, and my boyfriend always planned to propose with it someday because it was his way of honoring his aunt. Here's the thing. His sister actually tried to convince him to have the ring modified before proposing to me. She told him he could keep the sentimental value while making it more modern and reflective of my style. She even suggested replacing the stone or updating the band to make it something I'd like. But he refused. He said he didn't want to change anything about the ring because it wouldn't feel right, like it would ruin the memory of his aunt. When I read her message, I don't know. At first, I felt bad. I mean, it's a sad story, and I get why the ring meant so much to him. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. He knew the ring wasn't my style, and even his sister, who knows me pretty well, told him to make changes to it. He had every opportunity to make it into something that would work for both of us, but he chose not to. I texted his sister back and told her I appreciated her reaching out, but I also explained how I felt. I told her that while I understood the sentimental value of the ring, it hurt that my boyfriend ignored my preferences and didn't take the advice she'd given him. If he really loved me, he would have made the effort to make the proposal special for me, not just for himself. After that, I realized I was done. This wasn't just about the ring. It was about the fact that, after 5 years together, he still didn't understand me or what I needed. I decided to break things off for good. But here's where things get even messier. When I tried to text him to officially end things, I realized he'd blocked me. Blocked me. Like I was some random fling, and not someone he'd spent the last 5 years with. I couldn't believe how petty he was being, but honestly, it just made my decision easier. Since I couldn't tell him myself, I messaged his sister again. I explained that I was ending things because I couldn't be in a relationship where my needs weren't being met, and I hoped she'd understand. She was polite, but distant. She just said she was sorry things didn't work out, and that she wished me the best. So that's it. We're done, and honestly, I think it's for the best. I deserve someone who gets me and puts me first, and clearly, he wasn't that guy. I'm still young, I'm successful, and I have plenty of time to find someone who values me the way I deserve to be valued. If he wants to stay stuck in the past and prioritize sentimentality over his partner, that's his problem. It's his loss, not mine. Anyway, thanks for the input, Reddit. Some of you were harsh, but I needed to hear it. Now I can move on with my life, and I'm looking forward to what's next. Second story. I kicked my boyfriend's kids outside of my home by their collars and slapped my boyfriend twice after they destroyed my mom's urn with their dad's approval. Then, my now ex-boyfriend tried to ruin my life. Now, he lost custody of his children. Secret voices. Hey everyone, I'm being upfront here. This story is definitely a product of imagination. Still, I'm covering it because the original post felt believable, though the updates took it way beyond the realm of fantasy. Can you believe OP took almost a year to write this update? That's some serious dedication. Or maybe it wasn't even the original OP, perhaps someone else pretending to be them made the post. Well, that's just my take on it. Let me know what you think. Throwaway account. My BF now ex has 3 kids, all 10 and under. Their bio mom died, giving birth to the youngest. We dated for about a year and a half. I got along well with all 3 of them. And as a unit, we were comfortable and, dare I say, complete. They were spending a lot of time over at my house, and I genuinely enjoyed it. Then just recently, during a holiday when all the kids had the day off from school, my BF came, and the kids came over for a day of fun. They'd been there for about an hour when my BF said he needed to go to the store to get some things for dinner. His treat. I told him we could just order a pizza, and we should enjoy the time together, especially since I'd promised the kids a whole day of gaming. And I was looking forward to keeping my word because my own parents and I played video games together when I was a kid. My BF insisted that he would be in and out and not to worry. Not even 5 minutes after he left, the kids started acting up and completely out of control. I mean screeching, throwing things, opening the fridge and pulling all of the food out, taking a pen and running up and down the hallway while writing with it on my walls, etc. Nothing I said or did made any impact. They wouldn't go to timeout. They didn't care about not playing games, and they wouldn't listen. It was a complete 180 from the kids I'd grown to know and love. I was calling my BF over and over, and most of the time he sent me to VM. When he did pick up, he would tell me, "That's nothing. They're fine. You're the adult." And when he was finally annoyed with me, he told me to handle it how I see fit, and that he would be right back. He hung up abruptly, and when I went to call him back, I heard something shatter. I whirled around to see my mom's urn shattered and on the floor. It had been on my fireplace mantle next to her picture, and one of the kids had gotten on the reading chair to knock it down. I absolutely lost it. I started shrieking at the top of my lungs for them to get the F out of my house. They seemed to be in shock and wouldn't move, so I grabbed the 2 oldest by their jackets and threw them out of my front door. They were crying when I went to retrieve the youngest, and as I was marching back to my front door to put the youngest out front as well, my boyfriend appeared. He demanded to know why the kids were crying, and I told him, "Because your kids are godless demons that are going to wind up in jail or dead when they grow up." I then shoved his youngest at him and turned around to go back to my house. He followed behind me, scolding me for abandoning the kids, and instead of telling him to F off, I told him to come see what they'd done. He looked at everything with a dry expression. I mean nothing to show outrage at how the kids behaved. I started to think he was being purposely aloof when he said, "You failed." I thought I'd misheard him, so I asked him, "What?" He said that he told the kids to put me through the ringer because he wanted to propose to me, and he needed to be sure I could handle the stress of being a mom. He said that if I was really his true love, and if I truly loved the kids, I'd be able to handle all of this without calling him over and over or ditching the kids outside. I started rage crying and asked him if he understood that they destroyed my mom's urn because of him, and he replied, "She's gone, bunny. We're here. You were going to have to toss that creepy thing out anyway, once we moved in." I slapped him. Not once, but twice. I didn't care if the kids saw or if he called the police. Because who the F actually does this to someone? He told me he would forgive me when I called and apologized to him and the kids. I told him to go to hell, and he said I'd see things clearly when I calmed down. I blocked him on everything, and then took pictures of the destruction and posted about it on every SM account I have. Apparently, he has my email because he emailed me and told me I was overreacting to everything, and that everything could be cleaned or replaced, including my mom's ashes, as they were most likely dust and cigarette ash, and not her actual ashes. I have zero desire to get back together with him, because as far as I'm concerned, he's a sociopath. 98% of my friends and family are totally on my side. But the other 2% said that he was right about me, and that no matter what, I'm the adult, and I willingly put kids in danger. So now I'm wondering if I am the Ada. Ida. Thank you, everyone. Your kindness has brought fresh tears to my eyes, in the best possible way. I'm never going to unblock him, and I'm going to be looking into some of the suggestions I got starting tomorrow morning. To those that are saying this is fake, I can't help you to change your minds, and there's no point in doing so. Believe what you will. To those calling me the a-hole, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. But let's see how you behave in a similar situation. God forbid it ever happens. Update. 11 months later. Update. Putting my BF's kids outside after he instructed them to go nuts. Hey everyone, a lot has been going on, but I can finally give an update. Please be patient with me, as there are certain parts I have to be as vague as possible with due to current active legal reasons. But where I can give specific details, I absolutely will, so I can try and make sure you're getting as clear of an update as possible. When my ex and his kids left, the first thing I did was cry. Then I swept up my mom's ashes and broken urn into a plastic container and vacuumed up the leftover remnants, which caused me to throw up afterward. But I couldn't stand the thought of my mom not being whole. I put it all vacuum included beside my bed until I could calm down enough to think straight. When I did calm, I mourned anew. I couldn't bear to be away from my mom, even for a second, so I stayed in my room with her. I work from home and had to take time off since I couldn't stand to leave my bed, because I was beating myself up so badly for allowing this to happen. Yes, I absolutely blamed myself. My mom and I stayed together like that for a couple of days. I realized I was not okay mentally. I was heading towards a depression. I called my therapist and scheduled an emergency phone session because I refused to leave my room, let alone my house, for anything. After a lengthy conversation with my therapist, I learned that my reaction to the kids trashing my house and breaking my mom's urn is called reactive abuse. That's where the abuser, either directly or indirectly, pushes your buttons as hard as possible, doing everything in their power to elicit an explosive emotional response from you. And then they use it against you. As many of you saw, Jay, my ex, did exactly that when he was cyberstalking me in my Reddit post. I made sure cyberattacks were screenshot and saved as proof. The revelation of reactive abuse was so validating. I felt better after my session. However, I wasn't ready to go back out into the world by any means. But I had energy now to clean the food off of my kitchen floor that the kids had dumped there. And while cleaning, I started to wonder how I was going to find someone to help me with my mom's remains. I pondered over it until I went back up to bed. Then I remembered I had a phone with internet capability. I started to Google keepsakes made from ashes, and found that people places can get several different things made from a loved one's ashes. But I wanted something strong and resilient, so I could keep it with me, knowing it would be safe from harm. I found a place on the other side of the city, and took my mom's ashes to this funeral home that has a contract with a jewelry maker who makes necklaces, rings, etc., out of someone's ashes for you. I had promised my therapist that I would go out just once during the week, so I decided this would be that outing. The container, the vacuum, I took all of it with me bright and early the next day. I walked in the doors with a polite smile on my face, marched right up to a confused-looking gentleman behind the front desk, and when I opened my mouth, I just broke. I couldn't control it. My knees gave out, and I hit the floor without feeling it. I didn't even try to break my fall for fear of damaging my mom's remains any further. I just completely, emotionally shattered and started crying my heart out on the floor. The gentleman, who we will call Elliot, ran over to me and, without a single hesitation, wrapped me in the most comforting hug one human could give to another. Someone else approached, I had no idea who, since I was crying so hard I couldn't open my eyes, and Elliot asked the person to please take the items from me and place them directly beside us. I felt delicate hands touch my hand holding the container and gave my wrist a reassuring squeeze. I don't have a clue why I trusted this feeling, but I did. The items were taken and placed beside me as promised. He didn't judge me as I screamed and wailed, but instead told me, "It's all right, miss. Get it out. Don't hold back." You're not alone. I'm here. I have no idea how long we were on the floor. But when I started to feel the grief ease, Elliot was already armed with Kleenex and the kindest expression, one of patience and absolute understanding. He very gently asked me, "How can I help you today?" I reached down and held up the items, and all I could croak out was, "My mom," before bawling again. Elliot looked concerned and asked what happened. Instead of sobbing and snotting my way through the story, I just pulled up my post on my phone and handed it to Elliot. I watched his expressions go from thoughtful to shocked to enraged. He schooled his features before meeting my eye, replacing the outraged expression with a professional smile. He asked me if I'd like to look at some ash stones, new urns, and/or jewelry pieces and see if I liked anything. I nodded, managing to get out, "Jewelry, please," and he guided me to the table and brought out some catalogs of different styles for me to look through. I found one that I loved, a Queen Lizzie style ring with 14K yellow gold and moissanite. It was gorgeous, but it was nearly 1K, and when I saw the price, my face fell. I couldn't afford it since I had to pay for repairs on my house. I looked to see if they offer payment plans, and sadly they did not. Elliot picked up on my distress and asked what was wrong. I honestly didn't realize he was studying my expression, but it made me feel seen, if that makes any sense. I told him, "This one has everything that I love, but I can't afford it." Elliot asked my ring size, to which I answered, 6. "Why?" Elliot got up and went over to the desk and picked up the phone, calling someone. "Hey, I have a special order. I'll send you all of the info before closing, and I'll front the complete cost." My jaw went slack, and I immediately began to protest, because that's $1,000. But he hung up and strode back over without issue. I tried telling him he didn't need to do that, and that I couldn't let him possibly damage his professional relationship with the jewelry company because of someone he didn't even know. Elliot assured me it was no issue because the jewelry maker was someone very close to him, and it was the least he could do after all I'd endured. I told him I'd make payments to him in return. He tried to argue, but I insisted and stated I wouldn't be okay taking advantage of his kindness. He told me the only thing he required was knowing he'd helped a customer. This man didn't know me from Adam, and he just gifted me the most precious thing I could ever ask for. I didn't know what to say except to thank him over and over again. He got forms, and I filled them out. And when it came time to hand over my mom's ashes, Elliot let me take my time, again being the kindest person I think I've ever encountered before. He took my mom in both the vacuum and Tupperware container and told me sweetly that the next time I see my mom, she's going to be shining with happiness to be reunited with me. He believes our loved ones stay with us and give us little winks to let us know they're there. He told me that my mom was in excellent hands, and he would treat her with absolute love and respect. He also told me he'd take what was in the vacuum and put it with the other ashes, asking if I'd be okay waiting. All I could see in that moment was a cloud of ashes in the air, and the aftermath of my mom's urn shattered on the floor back at my house. And I told him I couldn't handle the thought of her ashes being loose again. The door chimed as someone else came in, and since I didn't want to cause a scene by breaking down again, I told Elliot to hold on to my vacuum, and I'll be back for it the next day. I left immediately after that. The next day came, and I didn't go back. I was so embarrassed over my meltdown that I couldn't bear to go show my face right away. I did call, though, and let Elliot know that I was going to come back and pick up the vacuum as soon as I could, and apologized profusely for my behavior. Elliot was more than understanding and asked if it would be all right if he called and checked in on me. I wouldn't be cut out for this job if I didn't care about my clients. The thought of this kind gentleman calling me and checking in on me made me feel many kinds of ways, but more than anything, it made me happy to have someone go out of their way to show they care, so I agreed. Over the next 3 weeks, I was busy getting damage assessments, repair quotes, and estimates, and finding a lawyer to sue my bastard of an ex into the ground. The cost is in the thousands, including the food they pulled out, and all over my kitchen floor that I had to throw away and replace, walls that needed repainting, and holes that needed patching. During those weeks, though, Elliot would call every couple of days and check on me. Not in an overbearing way, but in a very genuine manner. When he would call, I would tell him I hadn't forgotten the vacuum and that I'd be by to get it. Elliot would say it's okay, but would jokingly tell me that he would be using it to clean as a form of payment for keeping it, and that always made me laugh. It actually became an inside joke for us, with me saying, "Enjoy it while it lasts, it's an orc," and him saying he'd provide services when the vacuum finally died. I noticed our conversations were getting longer and longer, and honestly, it was nice. It was nice having a new friend to talk with about everything. He always listened patiently and offered very grounded advice. Then one day, Maybe about 4 weeks post-breakup, I got a call from the funeral home, but I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because my ex's son, who we'll call Jacob, showed up alone at my house out of the clear blue sky. I opened the door, saw Jacob, and was immediately looking for James, my ex. Jacob started talking in a rush. "My dad's not here, Bonnie, just me. I promise he doesn't know I'm here. We didn't know you would hate us. Dad told us to. Bonnie, you have to believe me. I'm so sorry. Please don't hate us. We're all so sorry." I was in shock for a solid 60 seconds before ushering him into my house and sitting him down. He told me that he'd taken the bus all by himself, he's only 10, and had Googled what bus to take, and that his dad had been busy lately, figuring out how to dirty my name as payback for my social media posts and for dumping him. This part I have to omit details for because of the current court case going on. But Jacob told me that his dad had been taking things of mine for later use. Again, omitting how Jacob came upon the information. But his dad had pics of my checkbook, my credit cards, written down my personal and professional emails, and had taken things like a razor from my shower, a package of my makeup wipes, and a box of tampons from my bathroom cabinet. I remember asking my ex about those items when I had discovered them missing. But my ex always said he didn't know what I was talking about or where they went. I chalked it up to my ad and being busy, so I didn't worry about it and simply got the items again when I went back to the store. But now I know it was my ex's attempt to mess with my head. Just like him calling me Bunny when I hate that nickname. For the record, my name is Bonnie. My ex had also apparently never gone to the store, but instead went to the gas station up the street and came right back. Background info on the unwanted nickname, feel free to skip. A teacher mispronounced my name once and called me Bunny during roll call. After that, kids used it all through middle school to mess with me, story for a different time. But I told him about the bullying one day while we were just coming out of our honeymoon phase. He told me he would help me take back my power by using it as my pet name. When I told him, "I'm definitely not your little bunny," my ex stonewalled me for a good 3 days, leaving my texts on read and ignoring my calls. I was finally fed up and said that if he was going to act like this and not communicate or respect me for not wanting to be called that, then we should part ways. He texted back almost immediately, saying he was hurt that I couldn't see how much he cared for me, and how he was just trying to help me get over my dislike of the name, because the dislike and aversion to the name mean my former bullies still had power over me. He was crushed I didn't want to work together, hurt that I couldn't see the good he was doing, and gave some bullshit reason for why it was good that he ignored me those 3 days. Thanks to therapy and deconstruction, I see now just how massive of a red flag this was. The part that made me stop everything and immediately call the police was when I noticed some abnormal marks on Jacob. I can't say much, but I'll say that my ex kept disciplining all 3 kids daily since the breakup because they overplayed their part, and that was why I dumped him and left the family. I assured him that was not the case and hugged him tightly, promising him that I didn't hate him. I hated his dad for what he tricked them into doing. Now, I can't say much about the events that took place after I called the police, since cases are still actively open. But I will say the kids were removed and placed with a relative, and I was granted my restraining order. X was charged with several things, including malicious mischief, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and second-degree abuse of a corpse, as in my state. The term human corpse covers 1. Any part of a human body. 2. Cremated human remains, often referred to as ashes. 3. Any part of the ashes from a cremated human body. When the 8 weeks needed to make my mom ring were up, I was preparing to drive over when I got a knock on my door. I'd finished a particularly long and cathartic teletherapy appointment and ordered Thai food, so I thought it was my tom yum soup at my door. I opened it to see Elliot smiling softly at me. I don't know why it took me so long to realize how handsome Elliot is, but he is. Imagine Zayn from One Direction, but without tattoos and with longer hair and a well-trimmed beard. He was striking in his black suit and dark green tie. I admit I was gobsmacked for a few seconds, also drooling on the inside. But when I found my voice, I managed to say oh so poetically, "Goo." Elliot just smiled more and said, "I hope you won't think me too forward, but I wanted to deliver this in person." My mind was a whirlwind trying to process everything. How did he know where I lived? Oh duh, the forms. Why is he here? Oh duh, he just said he wanted to deliver it in person. My brain was a delightful tornado of thoughts until he lifted a ring box. He presented the ring to me, and it was even more beautiful than the catalog picture. And sure enough, it was super shiny. I sucked in a breath and teared up immediately, saying, "My mummy's ring." Elliot held out his other hand and asked, "May I?" I nodded. and he slipped the ring on my middle finger. He admired it, asked me if I was satisfied with the services provided. Of course I was. Thanked me for trusting him with my mom. Then told me he'd head out to give me time to process and heal anew. He then gave me a wink before letting my hand go. Before I could say anything resembling coherent language, he held up my vacuum for me to take, and then bid me a good afternoon, ever the gentleman, telling me he'd call me in the morning to see how Mom and I were doing. In case you were wondering, we are not dating. I am nowhere near ready for that. But we have been spending time together over the past year and have gotten close. When I started legal action against my ex, I had no idea it could be dragged out for so long. The most experience I have with anything court-related is when I got a parking ticket about 2 or 3 years ago and went to traffic court. It was a one-and-done, same-day thing, so I thought this would be relatively straightforward and quick. I now know that there are a ton of things that can delay court proceedings: continuances, motions, scheduling, etc. There are a few court dates coming up, one regarding the mistreatment of the kids, omitting specifics, so I'm anxious about that. Especially since I have to see my ex in court as I'm testifying against him. But my dad is going to be escorting me to the upcoming hearings. I had avoided my dad because I felt responsible for my mom's ashes being destroyed, and I didn't know how to face him. I've since told him everything, and my dad told me there was nothing that I needed to be sorry about or ashamed of. But that good-for-nothing, dead duck, blunderbuss, had another thing coming. Thank you again for all of your support. And if it's needed, I'll update you again. Ida. No, this is not AI. This is so detailed because of journaling for my therapy and because of court. I can't make you believe me, but I don't know why anyone would want to fantasize about suffering reactive abuse or seeing their mother's remains desecrated by kids as a part of their father's abusive tactics. I would also caution you before saying negative things, because words absolutely hurt. And whether or not you believe me is honestly irrelevant because this happened to me, and I am still going through it. It hasn't been easy, and hearing more negativity isn't beneficial for anyone. Please choose kindness and empathy. It would make the world a much better place. To those who've replied with positivity, thank you. You have no idea what your words mean to me. Additional Ida. To those of you that shared your own stories of funeral directors giving you urns, remains, stones, etc. free of charge, it really goes to show you just how caring the people in this profession are. And to those sharing your survival stories of abuse, thank you. I see you, I believe you, and you were never at fault. God bless. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.